And joining me now, California Congressman Adam Schiff, of course, chair of the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, thank you very much for joining us. Let's begin with Ukraine. What is your reaction to what you've just heard? How does it highlight the importance of Ukraine's fight to keep corruption out of their system?
Well, that was a fascinating interview to hear what it was like from the Ukrainian perspective as Giuliani is making these demands for these smear investigations of Joe Biden and the horrible position that put Ukraine in. It reminded me of a conversation that Ambassador Volker had with Andrei Yermak, who Mr. Novikov, you just interviewed, worked very closely with, in which Volker says, you know, you really shouldn't investigate or prosecute the prior president of Ukraine, a guy named Poroshenko. And Yermak comes back at him right away and says, oh, you mean like you want us to do of the Bidens and the Clintons? Just the hypocrisy of what Giuliani was doing and the position it was putting the United States in. There we are, our ambassador promoting an anti-corruption message, Ambassador Yovanovitch. She's smeared by Giuliani, run out of town. And now the president of the United States, Donald Trump, is affirmatively trying to get Ukraine to engage in corruption. But really deeply interesting interview you just did.
And in fact, according to a transcript that I've seen, Ambassador Volker, the ambassador to the EU from the United States, set up this call and was on the call as well. He was actually participating in that call. Is Igor Novikov someone that the Giuliani investigators, the U.S. investigators, should talk to?
Well, it depends. If the investigators are primarily looking at the effort to get rid of Ambassador Yovanovitch, and whether that was being done on behalf of corrupt Ukraine officials, as well as in the service of the president's interest to push out this anti-corruption fighter so they could get Ukraine to engage in the corrupt investigation of Joe Biden. If he knows something about that, then yes, I'm sure they would want to talk with him. But if his involvement was regarding other issues, he may be less relevant. But certainly, I think anyone that can shed light on whether Rudy Giuliani was acting as an undisclosed agent of a foreign power, that is, some corrupt Ukrainian officials, we obviously want to make sure they get the information they need.
Well, in fact, Ambassador Yovanovitch testified to your hearings that the motivation was partly political, partly financial. So there's certainly some indication that there may have been some energy issues, you know, energy deals as well. We don't know what the motivation was, of course. That's up to the investigators. Ambassador Yovanovitch, by the way, has still not been replaced. There's still no U.S. ambassador here in Ukraine, which is a big issue here. There's also news today from a federal court in Washington. Judge Amy Berman Jackson wrote a scathing review of Bill Barr's memo clearing Donald Trump of obstruction. And Judge Berman Jackson, writing in part, the review of the document reveals that the Attorney General then was not then engaged in making a decision about whether the president should be charged with obstruction of justice. In fact, that he would not be prosecuted was a given. And also, of course, the brief memo that he released weeks before the Mueller report to certainly influence the public reaction. Your comment on that?
Well, boy, I remember that period so well when Bill Barr released that very misleading 4-page summary of the Mueller report, which really distorted the report. Because it prompted just this unrelenting series of attacks. And no one could say what the Mueller report disclosed at that point because we didn't know. But Bill Barr really turned the Justice Department into the president's private law firm. He was willing to deceive the country in the president's service. He was willing to shield those who protected the president from criminal liability, like Mike Flynn, like Roger Stone. He was willing to intercede to help reduce sentences for the president's acolytes. And he was willing to use the department as not only just as a shield to protect the president, but as a sword to go after his enemies. And I don't think anyone did more damage to the rule of law, apart from the president himself, than Bill Barr. So what the judge is saying is certainly vindication of all of those who are concerned about Bill Barr's unethical conduct. And I'm glad that it's being further exposed.
And finally, I want to ask you about the decision by Facebook this morning, the oversight board acknowledging that Donald Trump created an environment it's called serious risk of violence on January 6th with its posts, and they opposed an indefinite suspension of his accounts. The former president issuing a statement in response saying that free speech has been taken away from the president of the United States because of what he called the radical left lunatics who are afraid of the truth. Is Facebook violating Donald Trump's constitutional right to free speech?
No, the First Amendment protects Donald Trump and every American from the government regulating speech. It doesn't say that private companies need to use their platforms to air patent falsehoods that endanger the country, that incite insurrection. And so, no, I think Facebook is trying to have a consistent policy. At least its oversight board is trying to make sure that it is consistent in how it treats people. The president here is continuing to go out and push the big lie about the election, continuing, I think, to endanger our democracy by doing that. And so he continues to make the case that he would violate the policies if they readmitted him. And I think, frankly, pathologically, he's incapable of changing. So this is a temporary ban. It will likely be, if we're fortunate, a permanent ban, because the president is not going to stop the lies about the last election or lies about the next one. He will incite people if that's what's necessary to suit his narrow personal interests. And that should violate any good corporate citizen's policies.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.